Hi guys, I'm going to be narrating my seasonal round 4 match versus Edu. He's a good friend of mine and a great player, currently playing in SPL, so I was expecting a good set coming into this. So my team's a variation of Major Bowman's SPL Week 1 team, with Underpunch Metagross, Assault Vest Happy Coco, Sugarberry Volcanion and Tectonic Rage Landorus, as well as Belly Drum Snorlax. Edu's team is quite well balanced, it's got probably Assault Vest or a Pinchberry on Incineroar. Calm Minds, Tapu Fini probably, but could be support as well. Standard Seed Zapdos, Metagross and Amoonguss, and then probably Tectonic Rage Landorus, although it could be any number of sets with the Z move on Zapdos or even on Incineroar. So looking at leads, I definitely want to lead with Tapu Koko just because it denies Amoonguss a chance to spore early on in the game. And Metagross matches up relatively well versus a lot of its team, and I can potentially pick up some early KOs with Nature's Madness, chipping away before Metagross kills them. So I'm gonna lead with those two, and we see that he leads with Amoonguss Landorus. So Metagross is in quite a good spot here. It threatens both of them, but I'm quite scared of the Tectonic Rage plus Rage Powder play. So I'm going to Volt Switch off the Amoonguss and just protect my Metagross to burn the and switch to Landorus. But he ends up double switching into Tapu Fini and Incineroar. So rather than Volt Switch now into Landorus, I'm going to Volt Switch into Volcanion, which matches up very well versus both of these. I'm then going to chip the Tapu Fini with Iron Heads, putting KO range later in the game, and just Steam Eruption the Incineroar as he protects, revealing that it's not Assault Vest. This turn, I don't expect his Incineroar to be fast. Next, I don't expect his Incineroar to be faster than mine, so I'm gonna Steam Eruption again. I don't expect Edu to risk this because he loses a lot more if he ends up being slower than my Volcanion. And I'm just gonna Ice Punch to Zapdos to try and deny Tailwind. I'm also gonna Steam Eruption into this slot because should Ice Punch not KO, I definitely want to get rid of the Zapdos as early as possible. But if it does, the Steam Eruption is targeting Incineroar anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So he's going to switch out to Tapu Fini to eat the Steam Eruption, but I'm doubling Zapdos. Doesn't quite KO, so he gets up Tailwind, but I get rid of the Zapdos, which is very nice. So he's going to switch out into Landorus here, and I'm quite scared of the Tectonic Rage on both of them, but I know Volcanion can take one because of its Sugarberry. So I'm going to switch out into Landorus to potentially burn the Tectonic Rage should he target the Metagross, and then just Steam Eruption the Landorus and try and pick up the KO. So he does end up targeting my Volcanion, which does less than half, and I heal 25% back because of Muddy Water, and I'm just able to get the Landorus early on as well, so I pick up a nice lead from turn 4. So here he's going to go out into his Metagross, and I know that Volcanion can take one Stomping Tantrum, but I don't want to waste that so early if I don't have to. However, I expect to be able to get some big damage off on the Metagross, so the trade is worth it. I'm just going to switch out Landorus to try and preserve Intimidate for when the Metagross has Mega Evolved, and switch out into my Metagross because it takes the Ice Punch or the Iron Heads, both of which I expect Eddie to try and kill my Landorus with. So here I'm just gonna protect first to eat the Stomping Tantrum, and he Moonblast into Metagross, which doesn't do much at all. Here I'm going to just Heat Wave, knowing that I can take one. If I can get the damage on the Metagross early in the game, then great. If not, and he switches out, that's fine too, because Tapu Fini isn't really threatening. I'm just going to protect Metagross in case he wants to Stomping Tantrum into that slot instead. So he switched that into Incineroar, but like I said, Volcanion is very safe here. So Tailwind's now down, so Metagross outspeeds both of them. I've burnt the Tapu Fini, which puts it in range of Thunder Punch boosted by Electric Terrain, and I expect the Fake Out into Volcanion, just because Volcanion's a threatening Pokemon. I'm going to switch to Tapu Koko in that slot, and he does Fake Out, and he switches to Metagross, which doesn't do much, but it's nice chip for later in the game for Heat Wave to guarantee the KO. So here I'm going to protect Metagross so I don't take a Flare Blitz. I'm going to Volt Switch on the Metagross just because it lets me cycle Intimidate and it keeps up terrain control should he decide to switch out into his Tapu Fini, changing the terrain. So I'm going to crit the Tapu Fini, which activates its berry, and this gives me a good chance to go out into Landorus. If he decides to kill if he targets the Tapu Koko slot and ends up killing my Landorus, that's fine because I get Tapu Koko back in, get the terrain back up, and threaten KOs on both with Thunder Punch and Nature's Madness. If he doesn't and he targets a Metagross, then I get Landorus in for free, and I can take Tonic Rage safely the next turn. So it's a win-win situation for me. So he's going to target the Metagross, and so this gives me a take Tonic Rage into Tapu Fini, which I believe to be the bigger threat at this point in the game. I'm going to switch out to Volcanion to take the Flare Blitz. He switches out to Amoonguss, but I'm targeting the other slots, so I'm in a very great spot here. 6-3 up, and now is the point where I look at how I'm going to close out the game. I know Volcanion can take one Stomping Tantrum, so I want to preserve its health, enough so that later in the game once I've weakened Incineroar, I can just Heat Wave / Steam Eruption to close the game. So I'm going to protect Volcanion because I haven't weakened Incineroar enough yet, and I want to keep the health on Stomping for later in the game. And I'm just going to sack my Landorus here. If he did decide to target the Volcanion, I had Earthquaked, so I would have picked up the Metagross KO, which would have been very nice. But now this gives me a switch into my Landorus, into my Metagross. So here, I'm going to switch Volcanion into Snorlax because I don't want to take the Stomping Tantrum or a knockoff, possibly, or anything in that slot. I want to preserve itself, and Snorlax isn't looking too useful for my game plan at the moment, and it can eat a few hits, potentially get off some hits on Incineroar if possible. So I'm going to switch out there, and I'm just going to protect Metagross so that I don't take any damage with it unnecessarily this Oh no! I Thunder Punch this. I Thunder Punch this actually because I expect Edu to want to attack the Volcanion, and I'm just gonna try and get as much damage as I can on the Incineroar, before Metagross goes down. It activates his Pinch Berry, which is, good to know. It means I don't have to deal with that later. And now I'm going to make a slight misplay and double in the Metagross. I kind of expected Edu to protect the Incineroar, considering as how I was trying to target it down. But in hindsight, I probably should have at least targeted Incineroar with one of my Pokemon. It doesn't matter if either of these go down because with one hit on Incineroar, Volcanion can just end the game. And he's going to knock off my Snorlax. But that's not too big of a deal. Yeah, I'm going to Thunder Punch the Incineroar again, just to, hopefully with the Flare Blitz recoil, if he targets my Metagross, he'll KO himself. Then it's just Metagross and Amoonguss versus Volcanion, and I can win. If he doesn't, then Incineroar is weak enough anyway to where a Heat Wave will kill it. So Volcanion wins either way there. So yeah, he's just going to take both KOs with the Flare Blitz and the Iron Heads. But now this gives me a free switch into Tapu Koko and Volcanion. So I'm going to Volt Switch off the Incineroar, just because should Edu want to stomp Intentrum my Volcanion and it crits, then I still guarantee the KO on Incineroar. Get a switch into Hooper and then Tapu Koko as well, which can still clean up. He protects the Metagross, so I'm just going to Heat Wave into it, which is fine because now I get a switch into my Hooper and I can just Heat Wave plus Hyperspace, hold the Amoonguss, and just win the game from there. As we see that Stomping Tantrum does 57, so it was nowhere near KOing really. So yeah, I take game 1. I think I got a great lead early on. It was just about keeping the leads. Okay, so on to game 2. I've seen this team before. It's one that Edu tested with me for one of his games in SPL. So I know it's Charizard X and Scrafty and standard Scrafty. I can't really remember the item, but it's usually Assault Vest or Pinchberry. I know it's Bulk Up Tapu Bulu, but I can't exactly remember the attacks, so I'm not sure if it has superpower or just 2 grass moves. I know it's a special Landorus. I know it's Follow Me Blastoise and Never Ending Nightmare Aegislash. I'm just running a pretty standard full Trick Room team, but with safety goggles on Hooper, just to ease the Amoonguss matchup, should I need to set up Trick Room with it. So, for a lead, I'm just going to lead with Scrafty and Bronzong. There's not much he can do to deny it outside of Aegislash, and if he does, I've got enough to take the Never-Ending Nightmare, and Scrafty is slower, so I can knock off while he's in Blade form, and potentially pick up a KO. He's going to lead with Landorus and Aegislash, as I'm going to just look to knock off the Aegislash and switch out into Tapu Bulu, which sets up the grassy terrain for my Pokemon. My Tapu Bulu is Assault Vest, so it can take it quite well, and I can potentially pick up the KO on the Aegislash. He switches out to Scrafty, and as I switch out to Tapu Bulu, take about 70 from the Never-Ending Nightmare, which is fine because there's enough to Horn Leech on that the health doesn't matter, and I get the crit on Aegislash, which was really sucked because that was his main way of dealing with Bronzong and stopping it from getting the Trick Room. But now he doesn't have that. Bronzong's pretty free to get a Trick Room whenever it wants. There's not much he can do to stop it. So he's going to switch out to his own Tapu Bulu. And Scrafty is not doing anything at this point. It's really weak. The best it could do is knock off, but it's just sucking momentum at this point. And I'm going to Horn Leech with, I'm going to Horn Leech the Scrafty to try and get some health back and on my Tapu Bulu, which is nice for the Blastoise. So I'm going to switch to Bronzong. It matches up well versus Tapu Bulu and can't be knocked off by Scrafty as he switches to Charizard. But because I'm heat-proof Bronzong, it doesn't really matter. I can still get a Trick Room up pretty safely. So here I'm going to switch out into my Scrafty just to set up, cycle Intimidate, potentially get Fake Out as well if I need it, and just go for my Z Trick Room to potentially start throwing off Hypnosises. But he switches out into Scrafty, and here I don't want to take a Fake Out, and then he can give him another free Bulk Up. Then the Bulu might start getting out of hand, and he could, if he successfully stalls out the turns of Trick Room, then it's a really big threat. So rather than do that, I'm going to switch out into my Camerupt, and Fake Out the Tapu Bulu. What this does is it keeps up the momentum, and also gets my Camerupt in safely because the Scrafty is not really threatening it, even if he doesn't decide to go for the Fake Out. So I can just throw off a Heat Wave here pretty safely. And I'm also thinking about what resists Heat Wave in the Scrafty slot, and I'm looking at either Charizard or Blastoise, and I'm going to pull a double with my Scrafty into Tapu Bulu because Bulu matches up well versus the Blastoise naturally, and also I have Stone Edge, so that next turn I can double into it and get a Stone Edge plus Heat Wave KO. So yeah, I'm gonna. He does switch out into Charizard, so I can next turn just Stone Edge plus Heat Wave and try and pick up a kill on both of these Pokemon. So he switches out into Scrafty, and the damage from Heat Wave shows me that he's probably Pinch Berry. He's probably not exactly sure at this point, just because it looks like it's probably Assault Vest, but it could be Pinch Berry as well, depending on how much Special Bulk he's running. So here's one more turn of Trick Room. I want to keep up the momentum, so I'm going to switch out into my Bronzong and my Scrafty so I can set it up as Trick Room back up as soon as it goes down. And he's going to pull a switch into Landorus and just fake out my Bronzong. So this turn I'm going to fake out the Landorus, which is a bigger threat, and Trick Room my Bronzong. As he reveals Super Fang, which is slightly annoying because it means he can chip all of my Pokemon regardless of the number of Intimidates I get on it. So this turn, I was quite scared of Edu trying to make a read and going for the Horn Leech onto my Bronzong because Bronzong isn't doing much at this point. I don't want to Hypnosis because I could easily miss and waste a turn. So I'm just going to set up Stealth Rocks, which weakens the Charizard if it switches in, and knock off the Scrafty for Camera Up later. If either way, if he's Assault Vest or Pinch Berry, I can kill the Scrafty, with greater ease. And the Tapu Bulu at this point isn't really threatening too much with these two in. So I knock off his Assault Vest, he Super Fangs my Scrafty. I just get up Stealth Rocks. And then this turn, I'm going to switch out into... I'm still scared of him making the read, so I'm going to switch out into my Tapu Bulu to take the Grass move, and switch out into my Sakataka in the other slot, because I wasn't really expecting a fighting move coming from the Scrafty into that slot, as he just Super Bangs into the Tapu Bulu and switches out into Blastoise. So here, I'm just going to Wood Hammer the Blastoise, try and get rid of it as soon as possible, and switch back out into... I'm going to switch out into Camerupt because it's quite safe with me, getting the kill on the Blastoise. If he decides to switch out, then Scrafty's not doing too much anyway. So he does switch out into Landorus, as he's just going to Drain Punch for barely any damage. I'm going to Wood Hammer, which does a lot of damage, but activates his Pinch Berry, so he's back up to full. But at this point, I've got a pretty safe Heat Wave plus Horn Leech into the Landorus slot, which covers if he wants to switch out into Blastoise, but also guarantees the kill on the Landorus. And Scrafty is just sucking momentum at this point. It's not doing too much damage, and I'm just getting a lot of damage in the other slot. Horn Leech also lets me recover a lot of health, which is good for later in the game. So here, he's going to... What's he going to... Oh yeah, Trick Room goes down and he's going to switch out into his Landorus. But at this point, I don't exactly need Trick Room up to get 2 KOs. I can just switch out Tapu Bulu, reset the grassy terrain when I need to, and switch out into Scrafty, which weakens his Scrafty even further. And it also lets me get Fake Out on the next turn, and then Camerupt can just get a free Heat Wave. So I'm going to protect Camerupt from the Earth power. as he just super fangs my Scrafty again. So I can fake out the Landorus and then I just pick up 2 KOs with the Heat Wave. So I'm in a very good spot, 6 versus 2. And so once again, I'm going to look at how I need to close out the game. So Sakataka matches up very well versus both of these. Gyro Ball kills Tapu Bulu and Rock Slide kills Charizard. So I know if I can set up Trick Room with Sakataka, I can just win. So I'm going to switch out into Bronzong to recycle the Intimidate and Fake Out for later if I need it to support getting Trick Room up. And I'm just going to set Camera up here because it's not essential to me winning. If he doesn't target it, then I can get a Heat Wave off and kill the Tapu Bulu, which makes my job a lot easier. But otherwise, this gets me a switch into my Sakataka. So I'm just going to switch to Sakataka here and protect and Trick Room with my Bronzong. If he decides to double the Sakataka, guaranteeing the kill, then what ends up happening is I get Trick Room Bronzong and I just win from there. If he decides to attack the Bronzong, then I get Scrafty in for free. I can just fake out and Trick Room relatively safely because neither one of these Pokemon can kill Sakataka on their own, as he's just going to bulk up with his Tapu Bulu. So I fake out the Tapu Bulu in case he has superpower, and the Charizard is just going to Fire Punch my Scrafty for the kill. I get Trick Room up, which is what I set out to do. So here I can go out into Hooper pretty safely. Hooper guarantees the kill on the Charizards with Hyperspace Fury, and also Gyro Ball should kill the Tapu Bulu. But with his defense boost, it doesn't quite kill. So I'm going to kill the Charizard, and then he's going to Horn Leech all the way back up to full health with his Tapu Bulu. But I've still got 3 turns of Trick Room left, so I'm confident, that I've got the game at this point. He's just going to protect on the last turn, just try and stall out Trick Room as much as he can. And then the next turn, I'm just going to Gyro Ball and Wood Hammer for the kill, and that's the set. So yeah, I was quite lucky with my matchup in game 2. I knew that as soon as I saw the teams that Full Trick Room had a good matchup against his team, because I just pressured it. As long as I pressured a Scrafty, Camerupt goes to work with Tapu Bulu. And yeah, I was quite happy with how I played, really. So that's going to be it. I'm not sure when I'll do another one of these. I guess just whenever I have the time, really. So yeah, see you guys later.